Where do you see your fund house strength?
Strength is in building good products that solve people's problems. But it's not about equity or debt. It's jo bhi aap karo, whatever you do, you should do it well, and whatever you do should be useful.
Every fund house say that, sometimes they say our strength is in equity or our strength is in debt or, whatever hybrid products, whatever. Where do you see your fund house strength?
I think our strength is in building good products that solve people's problems, whether they're domestic equities, foreign equities, fixed income, or something else. I don't know what else will come up in the world. I don't think we want to confine ourselves to one asset class, and they can be products like Balanced Advantage that are mixing multiple asset classes. I think we want to solve problems for people. We want to bring good products. And I think this AMC has been little ahead of the curve in bringing some products to market. So we were the first ones to bring passive debt products to the market. We ran a BAF product very differently. We were one of the first AMCs to bring products like US Technology, the only one that runs a China fund. So we've been bringing things to the market a little ahead of the curve, because we are a thinking group of people. We're always thinking what the next idea is, but it's not about equity or debt. It's jo bhi aap karo, whatever you do, you should do it well, and whatever you do should be useful to someone.
Great. So it's more like a Apple kind of strategy. That's good. So now coming back, say like Edelweiss as a financial group, and you are part of the group. Generally, I always, investors who are first time coming to the industry, they always ask me the question, whether if the fund house gets closed, dissolved or whatever, what will I do? Then we give our own examples and cite the previous fund house exits and how they have been transformed, investor doesn't lose money, and the setup, etc., we explain. But always people have this fear. And when they see some news, they immediately forward to our group about, say like, if someone has put money in Edelweiss and they see a news item, immediately WhatsApp comes. Similarly, for other fund houses, it could be Franklin or any other fund house. Whenever they see a news item, they forward it to us and ask for it. So along those lines, Edelweiss Group was in the news in the recent past for shareholder issues or whatever it is. So what is your take on that? What do you want to tell the investors who are invested in Edelweiss Mutual Fund?
So I want to tell Edelweiss mutual fund investors, they have to separate the news of our parent company, and there's nothing against our parent company, so that my statements are not misinterpreted with what happens in Edelweiss Mutual Fund, because it is an independently regulated subsidiary. Edelweiss Group will be in the news, can be in the news, just like many corporates in India. And it is a known fact that not just Edelweiss Group, but the NBFC sector has had a tough run for the last 2 years. That said, I think as a group, we are well capitalized, in very, very good shape. So I don't think there's anything, but that is Edelweiss Group. We are an independently capitalized and regulated entity where your money is ring-fenced. We have very tight corporate governance policies. So if you are an investor in Edelweiss Mutual Fund, your assets lie independently with Standard Chartered, who is our custodian. We don't buy stock of Edelweiss, and we don't buy bonds of Edelweiss, and that is our written policy. In some AMCs, that may not be the policy. We have an explicit policy that we don't buy debt or equity of the parent company. They are also a profitable and self-capitalized entity. So what I want to tell you is that as investors of Edelweiss Mutual Fund, you should be concerned with that, and there is no issue there. There were some questions around selling the business, etc. I think even in the toughest regime for NBFCs, 18, 19, 20, we have been probably the fastest growing asset management companies among all our peers in the last 3 years. So despite so much WhatsApp and noise and headwinds, if we can grow at the way we did, with the customer base that we've grown at, I'm sure in better times we'll do much better. And I think there's no question of the group's commitment to this business. As I said, even in the toughest times, we spent 20 crores on building out the Bharat Bond business because we thought it was the right thing for customers. So that is our management's commitment to this business.
That I fully agree with you. I agree with you. Whatever you said, it completely investor money is ring-fenced, and not only in Edelweiss, in every mutual fund in all over in India.
Yeah.
So some of the regulations are top-notch in India that we should appreciate it. So yeah. Anyway, now coming to the little different topic from the funds. So like in general, small businesses are suffering, in all the areas because of the lockdown, because of lack of demand, or because of online startups taking away a good share of it. Whatever may be the reason, many reasons. Major being lockdown. Major being lockdown. So, but still, although government provided last time some money, to these small SME sector or MSME sector, even large companies, everyone benefited out of government funding. But still, in India, like a normal investor, an individual investor, not an investor, a normal person, if he has good credit history, he can get very good rates for housing loan or car loan, anything. But businesses across the board are getting at higher rates. They 12%, 13, 14, whatever, still banks are charging in India. And even at that rate, it is difficult to get money for small businesses from banks because they specify ratings, etc. I'm talking not the very small, at least, double B rating or B rating corporates, which are 50 crore, 100 crore. So what is the solution here? Just your thought. Since this is a discussion, I want to bring that up.
It's a good question. And I think, Rashesh, who's our group chairman, has said this, that ultimately, banks don't fund a lot of our MSMEs and small businesses in India. And I think you have to separate the individual and the corporate. Ultimately, you need a vibrant NBFC ecosystem that is funding sectors of the economy and businesses in the economy that do not get traditional funding, because you can't build a company on 500 or 250 large corporates. Ultimately, if India has to grow, the heart and soul of it is the small businesses. And small businesses have had it tough. I think between demonetization, GST, and the lockdown, it hasn't been easy. So while there's a set of things small businesses can do in terms of moving to more formalized sector, embracing digitization, etc., I think, and I'm not an NBFC expert, but I think you need a much more vibrant NBFC ecosystem that actually funds these businesses.
Small businesses, so that there is more percolation of capital or loans which are from debt or equity, whatever at that level. Anyway, now the other thing is, all these commodity stocks after a long time are flying. They all of a sudden 10,000 crore market cap becomes 50,000 crore of the companies. So indirectly, their profits are getting boosted, demand is getting high, going high. But this will affect, appliances sector, many sectors are construction sector, real estate activity, lot of things as price shoots up. It's a cement, steel, any minerals, metals, many of those items. So what is driving this rally, and how much it can further go up?
So commodities are fundamentally a cyclical asset class, and I agree they've had, some people are saying that it's sort of a, super cycle that is beginning in commodities, and it's happening in crude oil, and it's happening in copper, and it's happening in palladium. So commodities are a very, very cyclical asset class, and some companies, not companies, have started sort of warning that there could be margin compression because there will be input price, thing. As far as investors, a lot of investors are also asking if they should play the commodity cycle, etc. I think that's a tricky idea for investors, by the way, because commodities are a very, very cyclical asset class, and most people don't get this right.
Most of the time. So, in your thought process, there is still some upside to go for these prices before they top out.
In fact, I think the commodity cycle in some part has probably just started, but you have to be careful with it going forward.
Yeah. My worry is mainly for the industry and the consumers.
The economic recovery is still precarious. There's some companies that are sort of coming out. There's some sectors that are not coming out. Banks are, of course, in a much better situation. So I think that's something that you just have to think about.
Sure. And most of the customers or investors who come, when they come to invest with us, and sometimes they ask me, where do you put your money? You are saying mutual fund, where are you putting your money? Then I tell, I do not have any FD at all. It's nil almost. So most of my assets, if at all, is in mutual fund only. I believe that. So similarly, where is Radhika's asset allocation? How is Radhika's asset allocation? Where have you put your money most?
Okay, so very simple. No FDs, no single stocks except Edelweiss, which is part of my ESOP. All mutual funds. So money where the mouth is. Three kind of areas I do. I do balanced advantage fund, which we talked about as a core. So Edelweiss balanced advantage fund will be a very significant part, both lump sum and SIP. Absolutely love it because I'm a conservative investor, and it gives me upside without too much downside. I also supplement, so that's the core. I supplement it with two things: SIPs into our mid and small cap funds, which I like, and that gives me the alpha in the portfolio. By the way, balanced advantage also meets my debt needs. I don't hold outright debt because I have a home loan. So it doesn't make sense to earn 6% in debt and pay 7% on a home loan. Some people ask me this. So balanced advantage fund is the core, mid and small cap fund SIPs, and then international fund SIPs. We don't just manufacture international funds. We really like them. So I have SIPs into developed country funds like US and emerging country funds like China.
Very good. Very good. And in general, for you have gone around many countries, and you are there in New York, and then subsequently from all the places, Pakistan to Nigeria to everywhere. So generally, in the developed world, the economies are vibrant. It's growing like anything. India is also coming up in a big way. But what more we as people and government, we all should do to bring up a vibrant economy?
So I think it is not, and I have lived in economies far more developed than India and far less developed than India. And I think you can't compare. I think the US is a very vibrant economy, but it is one that it's so I always say that if you want to succeed in the US, you really have to solve third order kind of problems in the US. India is a growth economy. It's like a teenager. It is extremely chaotic. There is a lot of drama on a day-to-day basis, but the opportunity to do simple things at scale is very, very large. If you look at our own business, in the US, mutual fund penetration to GDP is probably 90%. In India, it's 6-7%. So we have tremendous opportunity. I think what we need to do is solve simple problems at scale, because in mutual funds itself, I always say, you don't need to do anything very complex. You just need to convince people to move from bank accounts to something, or from FDs to something like Bharat Bond. So your needs and problems are very different. They have to be solved at large scale. So in India, distribution, logistics, supply chain, the scale of our population is large. So whatever you do has to solve a problem at large scale. And I think, when I thought about returning to India, that is the opportunity that excites me, to solve problems at a very large scale. Because as an individual, then you can have some impact. So that's why I think the benchmark to developed economies, to an economy like New Zealand or Australia, it's not a fair benchmark. And India is a youth country. I think, whether it's our youth or whether it's our economy or whether it's our salaries, we seek growth. I think, if there's a case to live in India, it's growth.
Yeah, true. I mean, phenomenal growth in every say like 5, 10 years, 20 years, any period of time you have been seeing. You rightly said that it's more like a teenager than anything else. So that is the
teenagers are already.
So now coming back, this I think there's something close to your career or whatever, alternate investment funds. So AIF, I think the minimum investment is like 1 crore, but is really a juice there? Juice is there in the sense, are really people making money? Not only your AIF, Edelweiss AIF, across the board. I am asking. Are those investors making much higher money than mutual fund investors, or it's more for a conservative or product suiting, or that kind of customized products, that kind of, or tax saving, all those things? So just to throw some light about AIF for the wealthy investors.
So AIF, I come from the AIF business. I spent at least the first half of my career on that side of the business. I think when we think about AIFs, we assume that AIFs people invest only for higher returns. I think AIF is a vehicle that SEBI has created for high net worth investors to do strategies that are not available on an MF platform. An MF platform, as you yourself said, is very, very regulated. You can't do so I came from the hedge fund world in the US.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do a lot of hedge fund strategies. You can't do a lot of commodity strategies. You can't do a lot of credit strategies on the MF platform because this is meant for the retail consumer. He may not understand these strategies, but for a high net worth consumer, you may. So I think first you have to think about AIF that way. Now there are good AIF. The frank answer is there are good AIFs and there are bad AIFs, and there are different kind of AIFs, just like there are different kind of mutual funds. There are very good equity AIFs, for instance, for a high net worth investor who might give you equity like returns with much lower risks because they have the ability to do different things. There might be some equity AIFs that are very focused and are running more concentrated strategies where mutual funds may hold 60 stocks, these may hold 15 to 20. So there are different things available on the AIF platform. It's just that it's very important for you as a consumer to do your due diligence and don't just buy an AIF because it's an AIF and it looks exotic. You have to see again, what problem is the AIF solving for me? What is it giving me that the mutual fund is not giving me?
Okay. Well said. So it's more of an opportunity or a place where you have different strategies. So you have to be careful while choosing. It's not a very common plain vanilla product kind of thing. I am with you. So I know we should have a separate interview to know more about you and as a person. This I have been going through mainly with more into mutual funds and you are as a company, as a business, all those things. You have roamed around many countries, being a daughter of a diplomat and, from, as I said, Pakistan, Nigeria, USA, Italy. If I saw your resume, in many places also you have studied throughout elsewhere. So why did you pick India to make a career? What made you to come back to India?
So I wish the answer was a very thought out one. I was living in the US, had a reasonably successful Wall Street career, and three of us friends just wanted to open a business. And when you're 24, you don't think these decisions through. So I would love to give you a great strategic answer as to why we made this move back. We wanted to come back and set up something in our home country. We felt the investment market here was very new and nascent, and we might be able to do something. So we took a chance. And as I said, I've been here for now 10 years, and people in the US keep asking me, do you regret it? Would you ever want to go back? And I've said, I've not regretted it for a day. Sometimes life has been more difficult. Sometimes there've been tough periods like this COVID one. Sometimes the Bombay traffic frustrates you. All that stuff happens. But I think the country has so much potential for growth. It has so much potential to make impact as an individual. And, at heart, I'm the daughter of someone who represented India for 40 years. My father was a diplomat. So I'm very patriotic ultimately about making some impact back home.
True. The same case with me also. After living 7-8 years in the US, just returned to do something on my own here. The freedom that you have in your own country.
Yeah.
And the connections, networks, all those friends, families, all those things are great. Anyway, so finally we are coming to an end of the show. So the thing is, if you would like to share something about your family, your hobbies, your likes, dislikes, whatever it could be.
Okay. So I come from a small, close-knit family. It's not a very big extended family, and they live in Delhi. My brother and his wife, and my mother and father, and very, very close and connected. In fact, one advice I have to everybody in the lockdown is if you don't live with your parents, please call them every day. Parents are parents and you never get that opportunity. And because we grew up in many countries and many difficult countries at a time when there was not connectivity, the family is very close. And then, of course, I live with my husband in Bombay. And we are also very interesting because we are a little bit like two states. I come from UP and Delhi. And he is from Karnataka and Goa. His mother is Mangalorean, his father is Goan. So we are also a very interesting cultural mix. So I think we represent a lot of the diversity that is India. And in terms of hobbies, I think people would be surprised to know I don't read too many finance books, etc. But I read lots of literature and fiction, and I like to write and look at Urdu poetry in my free time. So my interests are usually literary and writing related. And I keep pursuing those. And the third thing I like to do is cook. So I really enjoy cooking. I have to say I've not perfected South Indian food yet, but I really enjoy cooking, and the lockdown has really helped me with that.
Very good, very good. Thank you very much, Radhika. Thanks for taking time out in your schedule, busy schedule, and sharing your views and thoughts with our investors. Next time, after the COVID, everything is over. Maybe probably I might visit Mumbai or you might visit in Chennai. So I think last time you dropped by our office like a couple of years back. Anyway,
so I will come to Chennai because I am missing eating ghee dosa in Chennai. So there's nothing like eating ghee dosa in Chennai. It's fabulous, and buying sarees in Chennai.
Very good. You are most welcome. Until then, thank you. Take care and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and take care, everyone.
Thank you.